Good evening and welcome to the Fantasy Wildcard Devy show. My name is Jack and I have Phil with me later on tonight. You're going to hear from him in a bit. But for now, you've just got the wonderful voice of my own. Tonight, we are going to be performing a Devy MOT on each other's rosters. So Phil and I have both offered up one of our rosters as a sacrificial lamb. And hopefully, if we do a good job, that will pave the way for us to keep the garage open and assess some of your rosters next time. Now, we're going to dive straight into Phil's Devy roster. There's no hanging about this afternoon, this evening, whenever you are listening or watching. But to caveat his roster, Phil wanted to make sure that I let you know that this is a year 2 Devy squad, so has had one season, didn't quite win the championship, but did draft with a win now strategy in mind. So let's bring up the Devy and Dynasty roster that Phil has here, and we'll go through it and analyze it. So as you can see, we've got a strong starting lineup, especially at quarterback with Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes in there. Two bell cow-ish running backs in Saquon Barkley and Travis Etienne. Michael Pittman as your wide receiver 1, supported by Chris Godwin and Deontay Johnson. We've got old man Kelsey at tight end, which obviously underlines that win now strategy. Deontay Johnson in at wide receiver 3, and David Montgomery and Devin Singletary backing up a pretty strong running back room, especially for last season, which helped Phil get into the playoffs. Unfortunately, didn't quite get to the championship game. I'm going to break this down position by position in a minute. So let's have a quick look at the rest of his roster. It's not quite as appealing on the bench, but whose dynasty roster ever does look better on the bench? If it does, it means you've had a truckload of injuries, unfortunately, or suspensions. Either way, it's just not what you want. And his Devy roster here: Trevor Etienne out of Georgia, Branson Robinson also at Georgia, Luther Burden from Missouri, Justice Haynes, Alabama, and Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. And as I say, we'll break that down position by position, and we'll get onto the Devy picks in a little while. But I'll leave that roster up for you so you can see it. If you're listening, you'll just have to imagine a beautiful set of screenshots from Sleeper and a hastily made list of Phil's Devy picks that I did. So if you want to check that out, check out the video. We are always available on YouTube under the Devy, under the Fantasy Wildcard banner, as well as all over X and Twitter, however you want to approach it, whether you're old school or not. Right, Phil's quarterback room is all set, isn't it? You've got Patrick Mahomes, Tua, and Brock Purdy. I'm honestly not quite sure how Phil has managed to get all 3 of those in a Superflex startup draft. I love this approach. I think all 3 are solid quarterbacks. Mahomes, nothing needs to be said. Tua has the opportunity to really bounce back and prove that he is a QB1 slash high-end QB2 and put the head injuries behind him. Hopefully the concussions are not a pattern that continues. And Brock Purdy is thriving in the San Francisco offense, which says enough for itself. I have to admit, Brock Purdy is probably my biggest Devy whiff, because I didn't like really any of his tape in college, and he has come to the NFL and proved me well wrong. So a great quarterback room for Phil. The running backs in Saquon Barkley and Etienne, he's got 2 of very few remaining kind of feature backs that are in the NFL. For Saquon, Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley, Lou Nichols, they're not a threat to his time on the field. The Eagles have splashed out on their NFC East nemesis for a reason. They probably won't make him a workhorse back. I don't know if that really exists in the NFL anymore anyway, but he is going to feature heavily in both the run and the pass game. Travis Etienne is Trevor Lawrence's best friend from college down in Clemson. He's a dynamic runner. He's got excellent hands. So there are PPR points aplenty with these two, and they're a really strong combination as your starting running backs. You then got David Montgomery as the touchdown vulture in Detroit, and Devin Singletary has absolutely zero proven competition over in New York. So between them, Eric Gray, Tyrone Tracy, albeit caveat he is a rookie, and Jashawn Corbin, they have 18 NFL carries between them. So I think Singletary's got a strong case to be a workhorse as much as a workhorse can be in the New York offense. So it's a strong room backed up by a couple of wild cards in Keaton Mitchell and Gus the Bus Edwards. We're not really sure what their fancy outlook is like, both of them coming off injuries. Gus Edwards moving across to LA. So we'll see what happens, but they're certainly great running backs to have as your number 5 and number 6. Now, the wide receiver room, you cannot accuse us here at Wildcard Devy of being a one-trick pony. We definitely give you a spectrum of approaches to fantasy football and to Devy roster building, because this could never be my wide receiver room. I'm not super comfortable with Michael Pittman as my lead receiver, but there's absolutely no denying that he was a superstar in 2023. He was a target hog with Gardner Minshew demanding 30.5% of passes. Pittman saw just under 10 targets a game, so he averaged 9.8 targets a game, which is 4th in the NFL last season. And if he maintains that going into the 2024 version of the Colts offense, then fair play. You do have a wide receiver 1. But I'm not sold on that happening with a healthy Jonathan Taylor and a healthy Anthony Richardson looking to run the ball. But it is within the realms of possibility. Michael Pittman is an incredible wide receiver. I just would love to have someone a little bit more established as my top wide receiver. So then you've got Chris Godwin, obviously a PPR dream with Tom Brady at the helm, not quite so profitable with Baker under center, and obviously a still prolific Mike Evans on the outside, demanding the ball. I do love Deontay Johnson going to Carolina. He's another target hog, a bit like Michael Pittman, and he could fathomably take over as the lead receiver for the Panthers very, very quickly. But how valuable that is for fantasy remains to be seen. Carolina did not have a good offense last season. I don't know how much stronger it's going to be in 2024. But Deontay Johnson is someone I have a lot of shares of, so I'm absolutely hoping and praying for his development and for Carolina's development as a fantasy relevant offense in 2024. Phil's also got Cortland Sutton in that team. Strong numbers last year, very touchdown dependent, which obviously isn't particularly replicable year on year, especially with a Denver offense with a new quarterback in Bo Nix and one that actually doesn't look particularly good. Not that it was great last season either. So you've got the chance that Cortland Sutton can still maintain some numbers in a poor offense, but I'm skeptical. And then after that, you've got some real roster cloggers. Nelson Aguilar, Tillman, Demarcus Robinson, Devin Duvernay. They're not trustworthy in your lineup. And arguably, you could cut all of those. So, Phil, you could be giving yourself a lot of roster space pretty soon, because I just don't see how you can trust any of those in your starting lineup week on week. At tight end, Phil added an extra note here to say that Kelsey let him down in the playoffs last season. I'm sorry for your loss, Phil. It's a strong tight end room behind Kelsey with Freiermuth, Tyler Higbee, and Greg Dulcich. I don't know. I didn't actually establish whether this is a tight end premium league with Phil, so That would be interesting to know. If it is, that's quite a strong room there, with Pat Fryermuth being the safety blanket for whoever wins the job in Pittsburgh. And Greg Dulcich, love the talent, don't love the offense. But again, Bo Nix, his average depth of target in college was 6 yards, so pretty low. So Greg Dulcich, again, if he establishes himself as the safety blanket for Bo Nix, then that could be a PPR dream where he's getting targeted heavily and often just not very deep down the field. So we'll see what happens there. The Devy squad. So Luther Burden is your elite asset on this Devy roster, Phil. We assume he's going to enter the 2025 NFL draft and bolster your needy wide receiver room. Maybe that's your route to getting a true wide receiver one. I hope for your sake that he's not drafted by someone like the Patriots. But for my sake, I would love the Patriots to take Luther Burden. I think he's a special talent at wide receiver. In the 2026 draft eligible group, you've got Carnell Tate and Justice Haynes. Obviously, Carnell Tate, I absolutely love the guy. Naturally, I've spoken about him a fair amount, so we won't go over him too much. And Justice Haynes, a big name in the Devy running back sphere, a big opportunity this year to establish himself and really boost that draft stock going into the 2026 NFL draft. Unfortunately, Branson Robinson, such an exciting talent. He has the whole package, but is out for the entire 2024 college season with a ruptured patella tendon. It's not a great injury for a running back to have. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not the best type of injury for a running back to have. There's no trade value on Branson Robinson, so you're hoping and praying he recovers and gets a shot in 2025. And just taken in the first round of this year's Devy draft, Trevor Etienne, the transfer to Georgia. You just can't help yourself, Phil, taking those running backs. I think he'll be the feature back at Georgia, which will help position him well in a talented 2025 running back class. He is putting himself in a position to stand out if he can really show the whole package at Georgia, and he's certainly got the opportunity to do that. So what are we going to do to this roster? What would I do to MOT Phil's roster? Now, my fancy instincts are to get out on the running backs, but I think Phil actually needs to ride them into the sunset and go hard for the ship in 2024. When you draft running backs that are going to age out, it feels a lot less costly because than when you've traded for them. Like if you trade for aging running backs and they either get injured or they just age out and you've given up future draft capital, you end up seeing what you could have had. And I think, and I hope that Phil hasn't traded up for these guys. Obviously, it is Phil, so he may well have given up future draft capital in the startup to get these running backs. But I'm earmarking this running back room as the cornerstone of this roster, especially with the fact that you're not going to get anything for trading them away. Like you want to keep Saquon Barkley because his peak value has gone. He's signed a second contract. He's on a new team. I'm excited for what he's going to do in the next year or two, but there's not much hope after that for trade value. Travis Etienne is young enough that you probably could trade him away, but I don't think he's in the upper tier of running back value. Definitely not right now. We'll see what happens in season. And David Montgomery has no trade value except if you are not making the playoffs. So, but you know, that's kind of an MOT for the end of season. If you're not making the playoffs and you've got David Montgomery or Devin Singletary on your team and they're still in those roles that we expect them to have, for Montgomery, that's, you know, quite a lot of goal line work. For Singletary, it's the lion's share of the snaps for the Giants. Then they're players that you could your only opportunity to sell them is in season if they are maintaining those roles. So build on that running back room is my idea for Phil's roster here. Now, Kelsey is probably a similar asset theoretically to Saquon Barkley. He's an elite NFL player, but he does have a little bit of trade value left. And Phil, my first recommendation for the moves you have to make is that Kelsey's got to go. Hopefully you guys are all tuning into the Wildcard Dynasty show and the Wildcard Rewind show. They know what they're talking about, and they've on both shows, Travis Kelce has been discussed in quite a bit of depth. And like I say, he's obviously an elite talent that's coming to the end of his NFL career. And the point has been made on those shows that Kansas City probably don't need Kelce 100% of the time to make it to the playoffs. And they don't need to risk Kelce getting injured by playing the number of snaps that he did 3, 4, 5 years ago. What the Chiefs need, as they showed in 2023, is a fit Kelce when the playoffs come around. And obviously that doesn't project particularly well for Kelce's fancy output in weeks 1 to 17 if the Chiefs use him in a similar way in 2024. I think a lot of Kelce owners were disappointed in 2023 with his consistent output. But the name value is still there. So my suggestion, Phil, can you package up Travis Kelce with maybe Chris Godwin and go get a reliable wide receiver too? So I would love to see Brandon Ayuk on your roster. If you could package Godwin and Kelce for Ayuk, excellent. Or even can you see if you can take advantage of this, in my opinion, absurd dip in value on Chris Olave? Can you package up Kelce, Godwin, and maybe a future Devy pick to go and get Chris Olave? And then you've got a strong wide receiver core of Olave / Ayuk or someone similar, as well as Pittman. That would make me feel a lot more comfortable with who you've got there. My next suggestion is to tier down your QB3 in order to tier up at wide receiver. So can you take Tua or Purdy, whichever one you prefer? They're pretty interchangeable for me in terms of value. And then take either Godwin or Deontay Johnson and get Aaron Rodgers and T. Higgins. Remember, this suggestion is based on the idea of riding these running backs for a championship. So someone like Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins aging out isn't really a problem for this roster, especially as the QB3 on a team with Mahomes and Tua / Purdy. They're young, talented, exciting quarterbacks. The other question in my mind is, what is it going to cost for you to go and get Tyreek Hill in the offseason? I bet you it's much less than in season. His retirement plan is at the forefront of everybody's minds at the moment, mine included. Like what the rosters I have Tyreek Hill on, I'm not sure whether I want to hold him. I don't want to sell him yet, but I definitely need him to have a good couple of weeks, week 1 and 2, and then see where we are, because it could all be over at the end of this season. It could be over at the end of next season, or he could sign a new contract and you're left looking like a fool, having traded him away for not enough. Can you go and get Tyreek Hill? Can you play on that nervousness over how long he's going to play in the NFL before he goes and does whatever it is that he is planning to do with his career afterwards? Now, we've also got a note to say that the Devy draft for this year is still in progress. So Phil still has the 209, the 309, and the 409 in the Devy draft. Phil, you've got some strong wide receivers in the 25 NFL draft class and the 26 NFL draft class. Can you keep that rolling into the 27 class? I want you to target TJ Moore, Cam Coleman, Josiah Trader, or Brant Wesco if they're still there at 209, which it looks like you've shown me your draft board. looks like they could be, looks like they maybe one of them maybe will be. Can you get one of those there? Please, can you double tap wide receiver? I know it goes against everything that you want to do, but can you double tap at wide receiver at 309 unless there's a screaming value on running back there? But there's a chance that you can pick up Cam Coleman at the 209 and Jashisha Trader at the 309, maybe even TJ Moore. I've seen him slip in down Devy drafts. So, Phil, please, my request, don't touch a running back until 409 in this draft. And the reason I say that is the hit rate on elite wide receivers is much more forecastable than at running back. It's something I feel a lot more comfortable with. You've also got more starting wide receivers in the NFL per snap than you do running backs. So the statistical likelihood of projecting one of these top wide receiver prospects to a starting NFL wide receiver role is much higher than at running back. Now, Phil is obviously an excellent scout and certainly has an eye for a running back and which ones are going to hit. So if his hit rate on running backs is better than mine at wide receivers, then so be it. But those are my recommendations to fix this roster. I'm going to hand over now to Phil to see what revenge he's getting on me with his analysis of my Devy roster.
Yes, thank you very much, Jack, for putting my team through the Devy MOT and Devy workshop. On to the second part of the show then. Jack has entrusted me with one of his rosters that I am going to take a look at now with you guys, and we're going to help Jack fix this roster. Okay. First of all, I think the most interesting part of this is whilst we've sent each other, you'll notice we're recording separately this evening, we've sent each other our teams, our lineups, our squads, with our biggest concerns, and, really are trusting the other guy to help us plan a route forward. I, at the time of recording this, have not seen what Jack is suggesting doing with my squad. It'll be a nice surprise for us when we go live and we drop the pod. We'll finally get a chance to listen to each other's thoughts and opinions on our lineup. So we're really putting a lot of faith in each other here, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Listen, you already know Jack's like me. He's in far too many leagues. The team that Jack decided he was going to send me, we're going to discuss now. So first of all, let's have a look. Jack's team is, first of all, before we start, is very much how Jack has discussed building his rosters previously. We know that Jack is a big believer, firm believer in taking lots of swings at the wide receiver, and you will see that in this build. We also know Jack's thoughts on how he likes to build some of the other positions, and you'll see how... Well, let's just take a look. Let's dive straight in and take a look. Okay, first of all, let's start by looking at Jack's NFL roster. Okay, there's lots of things to like on here, lots and lots of promise. Now, you will see his quarterback position and superflex position in this superflex team is well taken care of. Set and forget. Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, solid. Okay, as good as it's going to get, and a lovely, lovely building point from there, which means in his Devy drafts, he can not need to prioritize quarterback. He's got his starters that are going to be there for a long, long time. However, okay, when you look down the bench at his other options, Jacoby Brissett, who may well start the season, may not, depending on how the Patriots choose to slow play or not slow play Drake May. Josh Dobbs, a flash in the pan certainly last year from dynasty perspectives. He's bounced around, well-established backup. May well get a chance this year at some point in San Fran if something happens to Brock Purdy. And then Kenny Pickett, who, looking at Jack's roster, I would imagine was a depleted rookie draft pick. I certainly hope it was, because if you spent a Devy pick on him, Jack, then more fool you. Obviously, old baby hands is now backing up Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, and is unlikely to see a field anytime soon. So outside of that super flex spot, Jack's got questions that needs to be asked. The real strength of this team, as I'm sure you'll see straight away, is the wide receiver position. Okay, so we've got Brandon Ayuk and Drake London. There's Chris Olave hiding there in a flex spot. We've got Tank Dell hiding in a flex spot. And when you look at the rest of the lineup, when you look at the bench, I'm a big Kendrick Bourne guy for depth. I think he's a really good depth receiver on quite a starved Patriots lineup. Rashad Bateman, as the Baltimore Ravens fan, I'm always hoping. I've not given up on him just yet, although it's looking more and more unlikely. You've also got then, as you dig into the depth of the bench, Mike Williams, who, if he's healthy, might just revive something. Might just still show signs of a pulse over in New York. And then a couple of deeper picks in terms of guys like Devin Duvernay, who offers special teams return value. Tim Patrick, who, if he ever could get healthy, Denver haven't given up on him, so why should we? But have a look at this. Look, going back to the rookies that Jack's going to be adding to the roster this year, that are graduating, if you like, from his Devy team. Marvin Harrison Jr., what a surprise from our old Ohio State fan, Jack. But also a couple of really good tight end picks here, okay, in Ben Sinnott and Jatavian Sanders, who very much were drafted as tight end 2 and tight end 3 in this class. So when you go back and have a look then at the tight end depth, starting in the tight end spot is Dallas Goedert. And then in a flex spot, Jack is playing Trey McBride, one of the young breakout candidates who's really, really kind of gathering traction, particularly in terms of his ADP after a late season breakout last year, when a healthy McBride and healthy Kyler Murray really kind of picked the Cardinals up towards the tail end of the season. So yeah, lots to like. I'm sure it stands, it doesn't surprise you then that standing out like a bit of a sore thumb is the running back room. Jerome Ford looked average at best when he came in for Nick Chubb last year. Zach Charbonnet, I imagine, will have been a Devy pick from Jack, who he seriously I imagine Jack was absolutely devastated at that Seattle landing spot. However, we know he's a talented player, and we may well see more of a kind of share this year with Kenneth Walker. Again, when you look at the depth at running back on the bench, I like Brian Robinson, but that aside, there isn't a great deal going on. Maybe Trey Sermon will finally get a chance behind Jonathan Taylor this year in Indy. However, I think personally, I prefer Evan Hull in that situation. But hey, who knows? You never know. So, in terms of the Devy roster, this is where it gets interesting. And again, you can very much see Jack's approach shining through. As we've already said, Jack likes to bring in wide receivers and take lots of swings at the bat, because in PPR leagues, as we frequently remind you, they are resellable assets. Keep the best ones for your Devy roster, sell the rest of them on. And that very much looks like Jack's mantra here. So when you look at his Devy roster, a couple of nice... one definitely nice quarterback prospect in Quinn Ewers. Jury's still out on exactly how his final season at Texas will go. Obviously, we've discussed at length Arch Manning lurking in the background, but it looks like it's going to be Quinn Ewers' job to lead Texas into the SEC. And Quinn Ewers is a name very much on the lips of NFL draft nicks coming into this season. Aiden Childs at Michigan State, nice player, nice college quarterback. Very much a late round dart throw, I think, for an NFL draft perspective. Potential UDFA, but a talented college football player who was probably well worth a late round dart throw by Jack in one of his Devy drafts. Devin Brown, one-time much lauded Ohio State recruit who just seems to have fallen down the pecking order and out of love. And, probably a hold now because you're not going to get anything selling him. It's when we look at the running back room again, a couple of interesting names there. Darius Taylor had a fantastic season at Minnesota. And this is where Jack's C2C knowledge could perhaps, maybe, sometimes tread on Devy toes. Darius Taylor in that Minnesota Golden Gophers' run game is a lucrative CFF and C2C asset. However, translatability, he may not be the most ready-made Devy prospect in that 2026 crop of running backs. Jordan James at Oregon looks like he's going to have a big season in that high-profile attack, stepping in for the role that kind of Bucky Irving's given up as he moves into the league. And Jam Miller, we talk a lot about the Alabama running backs needing to wait to take their turn. This year looks like it's going to be a split between Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. Jam Miller is definitely, to me at least, the dark horse on that Devy roster in terms of running backs. But look, again, when you look at Jack's roster, wide receivers galore. What a surprise to see he's got last season's freshman five-star duo, might I add, from Ohio State in terms of Carnell Tate and Brandon Inniss. Also Jaden Greathouse, who after an electric start kind of petered into mediocrity for the rest of his season. Eugene Wilson, great player at Florida, one you'll hear us talk about a lot, and I'm expecting a big sophomore season from. And then Antonio Williams, 2025 prospect, fantastic freshman season, has struggled with injuries since. Listen, he could really be a bounce-back candidate this year. So there's the roster. A kind of rundown of what Jack has on his NFL lineup and in the pipeline for the future. Okay, key strengths, as I've already mentioned, he's got an abundance of wide receiver talent on the NFL and Devy rosters, and he's got some tight end upside. Okay, he's got 4 guys there in Dallas Goedert, Trey McBride, Ben Sinnott, and Jatavion Sanders, all startable tight ends. The 2 rookies give him a succession path behind the clear stud Trey McBride, and then the aging asset in Dallas Goedert. Also, Taysom Hill was sneaking in the background there. You never know. Week to week, Taysom Hill can always provide you a little bit of emergency relief in a flex spot, and keep him there. Keep him there because I think Jack's going to need him this year to play QB for him 1 week, as both Josh Allen and Trev Lawrence are on the same bye week in week 12. So if you're in Jack's league, week 12 is the week to play him this season. In terms of priorities, quarterback depth is a massive one for me, as is talent at running back. So we're going to have a look now at ways of attacking that. A couple of things to discuss then in terms of a plan. Okay, draft spot. Jack is picking this year's Devy picks from the 106 spot. Now, Jack did ask me, surprise, surprise, to look at trades that would help him move from 106 to 101, because I think he might have his eye on another Ohio State freshman wide receiver in Jeremiah Smith. Okay, but Jack, listen, I appreciate it. For me, it is not what your team is lacking right now. We've already seen the abundance of talent you have at wide receiver. Listen, I think the way forward in this is the following. Okay, freshman running backs. We did a show a couple of weeks ago, which I'm sure you've all watched and thoroughly enjoyed, where we highlighted freshman running backs that are coming in. It's a good class. There's also Quentin Martin at Penn State, who we didn't mention on that show, amongst others. Rounds 2 and 3, I think if you can pick up any extra picks, I know it breaks your rules and what you normally do, Jack, but you need to be looking at some of those freshman running backs. I would look to get out on Brandon Inniss. Brandon Inniss is, when we look at Campus to Canton's wide receiver 0 metrics, he is a wide receiver 0. The likelihood that Brandon Inniss goes on to become Devy relevant now is an uphill climb. He's in a crowded room at Ohio State. We've already mentioned, like, the best path for him might be to get out of Ohio State and transfer out. But I think you'll still get a return from Brandon Inniss on name value before that value plummets. So now would be the time. This would be a really good year to target depleted rookie draft picks, because you have got an abundance of talent coming in the 2025 class at running back. The big names are going to get picked, but there are still going to be names that you can target. Names like Kyle Monenge at Rutgers, Jonah Coleman from Washington, and Phil Maffer at Clemson. I would imagine even in deeper leagues like yours looks to be, those names are still going to be available. And they would be names that I don't think you need to draft this year. I think they'll be available in your rookie depleted rookie drafts, but will give you a major boost and a prop up so you can finally cut some of the dead wood, like Jamal Williams, Leonard Fournette. Okay, I think his comeback days are well and truly gone. Restock that room with depleted rookie draft picks. In terms of QB depth is the big one for me. And a couple of options. First of all, if you don't like what's on the board at 106 in terms of your draft spot, I would be looking at targeting a veteran quarterback, using that as part of the package. If that isn't enticing to the player, what about selling Quinn Ewers? Okay. Could you use Quinn Ewers plus to target a steady QB3? And then kick it back a year. Look to draft one of the incoming freshmen, but really look at ways that we can hit that spot. And I think the best way to get an established veteran who can help you out in the immediate short term this season, but maybe for the next 3 to 4 years, would be to package Quinn Ewers, particularly if things start to go south now, as we've already mentioned. We know he's talented, but he's quite a volatile prospect in terms of his draft projections and even how his season's going to look. You will probably get more, it's going to go one of two ways. You can sell this value, okay, and there's the potential he goes on to have a great season and his value goes up, or he bottoms out, loses a job to Arch Manning, drops out of that kind of first round NFL draft conversation, and all of a sudden, his value's taking a shot. I think I would gamble on getting out now and packaging him for a veteran quarterback. Other people are going to like the shiny toy. They're going to like the prospect of the potential first round Devy quarterback. But I think now would be a sensible time. And then last but not least, mate, get out on Dallas Goedert. You don't need him. You've got Trey McBride. You've got Sinnott. You've got Jatavian Sanders, who will all contribute. Dallas Goedert now has only... it's mad. Like, he's making a living in fantasy off name value and name recognition. He's not had a top 10 tight end finish as a fantasy tight end since 2019. He was running back, tight end 14 this last year in PPR. And he's at a value where you could probably replace him with a guy off waivers. However, somebody will still take him from you. Target some depleted rookie draft picks with him, or a mid-round Devy pick, and then go and get one of those freshman running backs. But Dallas Goedert is a name I think you can sell that is not adding value to your roster. Crikey. Put Trey McBride in your tight end spot and call Brian Robinson up into your running back slot if needs be. He's going to be a name that people will take because people recognize the name, and he's still going to be first on the depth chart for Philadelphia, regardless of the fact they're probably not going to use him and use him well. So yeah, listen, to summarize, draft spot from the 106 is a nice spot, but if you don't see what you want, I would be looking to trade out of that spot and see if you can target a veteran quarterback. Again, if people are nibbling or you like what that draft spot is at the 106, Jack, look to package Quinn Ewers and get yourself, a QB3 that can fill in your roster for the next 3 to 4 years minimum. Target depleted rookie draft picks in this one. Again, I've already mentioned the 3 names that I would be looking at: Kyle Monenge, Jonah Coleman, Phil Maffer. Likely slip through the cracks in terms of your draft, but will all be assets I think we're going to be talking about come next draft season. Again, if you wanted to kick it a year down the line, 2026 running backs that I'm a fan of. I think Abu Sama is going to be available in lots of leagues at the moment from Iowa State. And I'm a big Mark Fletcher guy. Okay, I'll keep banging the drum for Mark Fletcher over at Miami. And again, there's options there. I know you don't like drafting running backs, mate, but the situation is pretty thin, and it'll give you a real kick up the kick to get there with that one. The last one I'd say is, if you really are serious about putting a deal together for Jeremiah Smith, mate, okay, the time is gone. The time to do that would have been 2 or 3 months ago, when people would have gone, yeah, okay, well, we'll take what an average kind of trade up in a Devy draft looks like. People are already talking about this guy as the potential number 1 player and prospect in all of Devy. And with good reason. Like, look, the guy is ridiculously talented. He's going to go on to have a long career on Sundays. I've got absolutely no doubt about it. The way to get him now, we'll start with that 106 and plus, significantly plus. Alternatively, could you get out on Tank Dell? We know wide receivers that are playing in the NFL hold more value. Tank Dell peaked as a rookie, had an incredible rookie season. However, with Nico Collins' new contract, the fact they're paying Stephon Diggs, they've invested in the run game in Joe Mixon. Is there enough to go around? He's coming off the broken tibia as well. Again, he could be a sell high to a wide receiver needy team. He could be an immediate shot in the arm that gets a deal done to help you move up in that Devy draft. But listen, mate, it's not going to be cheap. Whatever you do, it is not going to be cheap now, because people know all about Jeremiah Smith. So, hopefully, guys, Jack, if you're watching, and for those of you who've been listening, that's it. That's how we're going to fix Jack's team. Okay, we are going to look to target running backs. We're going to look at that QB3 spot. We're going to desperately help him target the right prospects. Quinn Ewers, Tank Dell, and Dallas Goedert look like the immediate sells. Get out on Brandon Inniss as well in terms of the Devy side of things. Look for rookie running backs that are going to hit 2025, that are going to slip through the cracks in the draft. Look to add some rookie depleted picks there to target those players. But most of all, mate, you've got the makings of a really good roster there. Stick with it, round it out. Where you see the abundance of talents at wide receiver. Remember, you keep talking about drafting, overdrafting to then sell on. Look at the ones that you want to sell in order to help you. That's it. I got the joy of going up second today. So by the time I'm putting this out there, you will have already seen Jack's guidance for me, which was really, really good of him. I really appreciate that, mate. All that leaves me to say then really is to those of you who sent us lineups in, obviously my hectic schedule and overbooking myself led to us not being able to sit and take your rosters in this time. We will do this in 2 weeks' time for those of you who sent your lineups in. So the ones that we are going to look at to start off with, Adam Gooch, you sent us a brilliant looking roster. Full of interesting kind of little tidbits. It's quite a deep league. So we're going to have a look at that one for you and really kind of dig into where we can help you with that. I'm just having a quick scroll through X now to check out the other one that we wanted to look at. Mr. NB Knoll 69, 16-team league. Wow. Okay. With a 5-man college taxi squad. So that one is a nice deep league. He says he's not a contender next year and just wants to put himself in the best position for 2025 and beyond. Listen, apologies, we've not got that for you today, but if you give us 2 weeks, we will have an answer for you. Guys, as always, check out the amazing work from all the Fantasy Wildcard team, the guys on the Dynasty show, the brilliant Rewind show. Check out Mags and the Hot Seat. The fantastic written work Lewis is putting out there on the Dynasty Pancake. You know, there's all sorts. The team are releasing content all the time, and you would be a fool not to be going and checking it out. So that's it from now. All right. We'll see you in a fortnight, Devy gang. All right. Peace. And, you know, Saturdays matter as well. Saturday on a football matters. Keep watching because Devy stars are your tomorrow's dynasty stars.